Okay, I don't know what the hell happened. It's after midnight. I shouldn't even be trying to do this now. I just recorded a whole big thing and discovered after all of that that it wasn't, for some reason, it wasn't picking up, or it wasn't live, or um, anyway, it didn't take. And I don't know that I want to recite all of that. I can't even remember now what the hell I just said anyway. uh, uh, there's a heat advisory in place right now. Um, I wasn't at my desk very much today. I have looked at the news stream a little bit. To my knowledge, I think Cleveland did not blow up. At one point, there was a fracas about a truck had been stolen, and so there was this truck bomb alert, and they were looking all over hell and dawn for a delivery truck. But I think that there were no big incidents that I'm aware of. Um, Last week, Sammy decided that I guess he thought it was time that his and Abby's parents should meet each other. I don't know, prospective in-laws. Anyway, Sammy got this idea and he made the plans and the arrangements, and um, Sammy specifically asked me to um, come. So I did. And this meeting was planned for a dinner in a nice restaurant about halfway in between, where Abby's parents live, and then uh, where Mike and Jenny live. And so it was about 4:30 that we were going to town to meet up in this restaurant at 5. And oh my God, it was really hot out that hour. Jenny was driving and Mike had to sit in the middle. Yeah, it was like 105. Humidity is very high, makes it hotter, And in South Dakota, the wind always blows. So it's really hot, wet, nasty feeling wind. Nonetheless, the restaurant was lovely. The meal was lovely. It was great to see Sammy and Abby. And it was nice to meet Abby's parents. Abby's not a frilly girl. She's a lovely girl. I like her a lot. She's robust. She's tough as nails. She's not a frilly girl. I'm not saying she isn't feminine. I'm just saying she's not frilly. Sort of a difference. Anyway, during the meal, there was conversation between Mike and her father, whose name was Willie, two old farmers, sharing their kind of mutual experience. And Willie was talking about the couple of disasters that had happened that forced him some years back to stop milking. You know, when you own a dairy and you milk, and it's a family-owned farm and you milk, that's what you do, is you milk. 12 hours a day, you milk every day. There's no days off, there's no holidays, no vacation. If there's a funeral, you milk. No matter what happens, you milk. Day in and day out, you milk. And Willie was a dairyman, and that's what he had done. He had milked. He was milking in Ohio, that I think it was either Iowa, I get those two states mixed up. Either it was Iowa or Ohio. That doesn't really matter. But he didn't have enough ground. And he wasn't able to purchase more ground. That's what they call it here on the plains. They don't talk about land or property or real estate. It's ground. That's the term. So he didn't have enough ground, and he couldn't buy more because it was so expensive. He just couldn't buy it. And so at a point in time, they had left that state and moved to South Dakota, and he had purchased a working dairy from somebody else who wanted to stop milking. And he had stepped into that man's operation, took over that herd, and had gone on milking. And one of the problems that he had encountered involved that he still did not have enough acreage. He couldn't raise enough hay and grain and feed for his own cows. He didn't have enough ground. So he was always forced to scramble around buying hay and buying the straw. You know, I said the other day, it uses a lot of straw. A lot of straw, a lot of hay, and it was hard to find, and he had to drive long distances sometimes, 200-300 miles, to buy hay and haul it back. And it just was an ongoing problem for him. He just couldn't. But that's what he was doing. And then he wasn't raising his own heifers either. You know, the replacement cows. He would buy them from others. But it happened that one of his neighbors wanted to retire and stop milking. This farm was about 8 miles away, and it was a self-contained operation there. And that farmer had not purchased other cattle. He hadn't mixed other cattle with his herd. He had basically the same herd year in and year out, that, you know, his own stock. And for some reason, that herd of cattle did not have a natural level of immunity built up to a very common microbe that is always present. But for some reason, and you know, they didn't know this until later on, and when autopsies were done. Anyway, Willie had purchased his neighbor's herd. It was 48 cows, milking cows, and he had purchased this herd, and he brought that herd over to his place and mixed them in with his own herd. And all of the new cows sickened. They had no immunity to this bovine viral diarrhea. Is the name of this. I'm sure that there's a technical name, but that's what people call it. And these new, anyway, once a cow fell ill, there was no stopping the progress of the disease, and they dropped dead. Um, so within 48 hours, nearly all of that new herd of cattle had died. There was just no stopping. And a couple of weeks later, a horrendous blizzard, untimely blizzard, had struck. I don't recall quite all the circumstances, but during that blizzard, 10 of Willie's milking cows got entrapped somehow or other and fell through some ice and were drowned in the ice water. And that was another huge hit. And all this time he was still struggling to have to find and buy and haul hay. Anyway, he said he reached a breaking point where he could not go on. He couldn't milk anymore. And he had to stop milking. And he said that at first it was horrible. He said, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to get up in the morning. I didn't have anything to do. I didn't know what to do. And it was a huge crisis for him, not only economically, but emotionally. And the thing I do want to point out is that this is almost always the case when a man becomes retired. Even if he thought he wanted to be retired, even if there's a myth about it, a myth, and it's sort of a lie that people believe to get them through. Tell them, you can't wait to retire. You can't wait to retire. And then they do get retired, or they lose their job in some other way and are forced to unemployment, forced into this crisis of not knowing what to do, not wanting to get up in the morning. It happened, recently that Mike, in this last year, sold his herd of cattle and is in that transition to doing something else. And it is not an easy transition. It's very hard, not only financially, economically, but emotionally. And I think many times the wives and families do not understand the huge impact that this has on a man, and how he must have time, and he must have support, and he must have whatever you can give him as he works his way through this life crisis. Anyway, Willie went on talking, and he said that it turned out that eventually he realized that he had learned a great deal about hay and straw. He knew who the sellers were. He just knew all kinds of things about the buying and selling of hay and straw. He had learned that the hard way. And it occurred to him uh, that he could use what he had learned during that adverse period of time when it was such a struggle for him to get adequate feed for his cattle. And he started a hay auction. I have never heard of a hay auction before, but he started one. And it was not long before this became a very thriving business. The local farmers, who also struggled to get hay and straw and feed, were they loved it. And the buyers in these distant places also loved it. And so Willie was able to synthesize out of that, and he made a really good business out of it. And that's what he does now. Runs a hay auction. But he said it took 3 years, at least 3 years, to get over the trauma of when he had to stop milking. And, so Mike is early on, and Mike's transition is not anywhere near complete yet. And it's still very hard. Okay. So that was a thing. And then, I don't know. This morning I put up on my screen a piece from Anne Barnhart that I thought was important, and I kind of wanted to cover that. I will go ahead and put it up on my blog. And maybe tomorrow I'll say more about it. In the meantime, as you read it, in case you don't know or you've forgotten, Anne Barnhart does not like the current Pope. She's very, very Catholic, and I'm telling you, she does not like this current Pope. She calls him some unflattering names at times, and for a good cause. A couple of months ago, Anne said that she would not make any more videos. She believed at that time that everything that had been given to her to do and say had been done and said. She has done extraordinary work in bringing forward a better understanding for us all about the nature of malignant psychopaths, demonic narcissists who live and walk among us. And I believe, as she does, that there are actually demonic entities embedded in these individuals. And, we are told that the battle is not against flesh and blood. It is against these powers of darkness. And I believe that these individuals, the psychopaths, all the way up the food chain and all the way down the food chain, have demonic entities embedded into them. We have to understand that enemy. They will destroy us and our planet if we do not understand who and what that phenomena is. So if you choose to go to my blog and read Anne's piece, she's going to be talking about Hillary, for one, and the Pope, and these political figures at the top of the food chain. But as you read it, I want you to think about the psychopaths on the bottom of the food chain that you have personally been exposed to, been harmed by, damaged by. And we all have been, some worse than others. And we have been misguided and misled to, and in our confusion, we have not been able to identify what the hell happened there. And we need to know this. One of the hallmarks of a psychopath is that they will always point the finger of blame at the victim. And normal people almost always will take that blame and examine it. One of the reasons that we do that is because normal people actually do want to be pleasing to God. We're born that way. We do actually want to be pleasing to God and to one another. We are more than willing to examine our own conscience, our own conduct. We are willing to take the blame in our hands and say, oh, well, maybe it was my fault. What part of this was my fault? And I'm not saying that one should not be introspective in that way. I'm just saying that the psychopath will always deny any responsibility, will feel no remorse, will never truly apologize, and will always blame the victim. Always blame the victim. Point that finger at the victim. And everybody is now looking at the victim, and the perpetrator escapes. We see this in many, many ways. One of the pieces I read today, and you probably read it too, had to do with several women were, I think it was a mother and two of her daughters, were stabbed by a next door neighbor, a Muslim next door neighbor, for being inappropriately dressed. The blame was pointed at the women for the way they were dressed. And the psychopath who did that crime, everybody was excusing his ass. That's how the psychopaths work it. And I'm telling everybody, you have to stop taking the blame. The shit that happened in your life that hurt so damn bad was truly not your fault. Don't take the blame anymore. And don't make excuses for the psychopath's behavior who did that shit to you and to your kids and whatever. That's a start. We got to see this stuff. We must understand the nature of the enemy. Okay. What else do I need to tell you? Mm, I can't remember now. Okay, so much for now. It's after midnight, going on 1 o'clock in the morning. I feel like I'm the last of the Mohicans here. So I will talk to you in the morning, and in the meantime, wherever you are, you know who I'm talking to. I love you. See you in the morning.